YouTube changed everything on me.
Oh, shoot.
So I'm hoping, I'm broadcasting out, but I'm hoping, so it's a totally different
layout.
So just to show you, this is what I use. Hangouts on Air has been discontinued.
Oh, really?
Try webcam. So this is webcam. So it's something new I haven't used before. So I sent you an email.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get you.
This is ready, just muted.
Yeah, we're ready to go with that one actually.
Do you have two of these?
Just one.
Just one, okay.
Even if I had to, I have no way to connect the other one.
I didn't know if you could. I guess it'd create some type of loop. So, okay, we'll be moving this. Yeah, I wonder. My phone can Bluetooth to two different Bluetooth devices. It'll come soon, huh? Right?
So I don't know if you got the email or not.
Okay.
I brought my PC this time because last time my Mac couldn't connect and I had to use my hotspot. The PC, if we VPN in, I can get to it.
Okay.
So that was a good thing. The bad thing was they discontinued it.
Yeah. It's kind of fun doing it live. I mean, there's no room for error, right?
Yeah.
So, updating. Since I have 11 new.
Let's try this. Go to the web browser. And this is the only way I know how to get to it. Go to our website, schools.gov. And then go to, scroll down a bit, click on the YouTube link.
Is this just a plug-in, or is the connection, is it just a hard connection?
So I've got the VGA and I also got an HDMI adapter.
Then I should be fine.
Let's scroll down.
I've got HDMI. So.
I'll actually go up here so we can find finance.
Okay.
And then put that on. It's not letting you do it. There's nothing for me to send you a link to, but yet it says participants. I mean, you're live now. That's what everyone will see.
But they won't see my mirrored desktop, correct?
I mean, okay. I can zoom in on the screen.
Okay.
So I can do that.
I need to push that flag back just a little.
Let me try to get it on. I'm going to sign you in under that account. This password's a pain in the butthole. I apologize, I'm sorry. This was going to be so easy, and then I went to click on it.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Can we turn up the microphone levels just a little bit? Is this better? Not yet. Okay. While we're trying to get the mic set up, I just wanted to take just a second and talk about our Pupil Transportation website. I've been working on the website with a couple other people. I'm trying to get documents put on, and a few years back we had our website things removed because of ADA compliant, and kind of the process of getting things put back has been quite a bit of work. The one I want to show you right now that I think is really exciting for me is yeah. Is that better? Yeah. And I'm going to aim this out, I think. Is that better? And let me probably do the same over here. Yes. Okay, so on the main Pupil Transportation homepage, I've added the red light violation survey links. So this is hard to see, but it says, while school buses remain the safest way for a student to get up to and from school, students who ride in the buses are most vulnerable when they're outside the bus in the danger zone. Each year, Utah school bus drivers participate in a one-day study of school bus stop arm moving violations. In a single day, over 900 vehicles pass stopped school buses with their lights flashing as students are getting on and off the buses. And for Utah, that turns out to be about 160,000 school bus stop violations per day. I thought this was really appropriate when we're promoting school buses, and also identify the hazards we have that we feel are the biggest concerns. And so this is now on our homepage, and I've been able to reference this with a few people. Hopefully we can spread that news. I had a conversation with Diana Hollander of Arizona, and one of the comments she had was, we're never going to eliminate all the red light violations. And so she really put a focus for Nevada in moving stops where we minimize that risk. And I think that was very appropriate. And if there's something we can do in our local districts, 900 vehicles per day is still extremely high. We need to reduce that. And if there's a few things we can do on our own, I think that gets us a great start. Okay, I want to welcome you guys out to Professional Development Session 2. This has been a,
Okay, thanks. So particularly with like our bus driver training, I have a news alert that connects me with articles all over the country that help me understand what other states are doing for their bus driver training. Another one was Utah school bus accident. I wanted to be informed whenever we had an accident that hit the news. So I had this article come across my computer and talked about which states have the safest and most accident-prone states. And as I looked into this, the kind of the definition said the average probability rate of an accident in all school buses with vehicles lifespan roughly 15 years is 9.5%. According to safety data from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, the states listed below have an accident rate that are higher or lower relative to the average. And I thought that was pretty simple.
That's for you.
So the next section was which states had the lowest accident rates. And I looked and I saw California, and I knew that we adopted California's instructor manual. We modified it a little bit for Utah. But how long has it been since we've done that?
20 years.
20 years.
And the California law is still in it, so it didn't get done right.
So we still haven't updated it completely. But I felt really good because California had second in the least amount of accidents. When I went to the states with the highest school bus accident rates, I was shocked. And I right off the bat, I said, you know, statistics, you can make anything be the top. And so I said, they're talking about how many, based on how many students are per household. That would bump us up to number one, right? And as I dug into this and tried to find out where they got their statistics, it actually took quite a bit. I had to request passwords. I had to be given access to this data. So through FMCSA. And this is the report that our Utah Highway Patrol and our police officers, they do their reporting, and it's collected in this database. And so this was a huge concern as being new, you know, granted we can only improve, right? But I still didn't trust it. And so I worked with Mark Peterson and his boss on trying to get some data that I could actually verify, right? And so as I got some data, I got a large spreadsheet, and I was able to identify how many accident claims we have had. And so this is a little different than the study above, but based on our accident claims, we're seeing kind of an increasing trend in accidents. And, you know, we know that not all these accidents are our fault, okay? But I just want to ask, what could have we done to prevent those accidents? And what I want to see is, I want to see the state of Utah increase safety on the school buses. We need to be looking for those opportunities to figure out what we're missing in our bus driver training. We need to reduce those accident rates. It may be that we have a higher defensive driving, that we're looking ahead on the road. It may be that, you know, our accident reviews aren't thorough. You know, we need to be identifying those causes, and that's still these numbers still bug me, right? It's a concern I have, and you know, I want to, you know, we're getting to a point with our data, with risk management, that we can pull accurate data at any time. And we're collecting it better. And so the tools we have now are going to be a great help in seeing how we are doing as we move forward. I was at a conference just last week, the TSD conference in Reno. STN, sorry. And there was a presentation that talked about workplace accidents, and I actually found the same logo, the Henricks Safety Pyramid, on the American School Bus Association website. And I thought it was really appropriate and translated to school bus. But as we look at this pyramid, for every 300,000 unsafe acts, and I'm going to say the unsafe acts aren't being reported to us. We're not finding them out. It may be that the driver forgot to look, started going, saw a car, hit the brakes. Do they report that to you as instructors? Probably not. What about a near miss? Does that get reported to you guys? Sometimes? Other reports of a driver doing that, yeah. So we do hear a little bit more of that, but as we come up to the minor accidents, we hope they're all reported. And again, you know, me and Mark talked earlier, you know, Mark only hears a portion of the minor accidents, because those minor accidents may be taken care of in-house, not reported to the insurance. But what I'm most concerned of is we have some high accident trends, and this scale, we could expect to have something more major. And so this is my introduction today, is to say I want to make some improvements, and we want to give you those tools to be able to help make those improvements. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Mark, and Mark's going to take just a minute and walk us through some of the tools that we can use and some of the data we collect, and how we can help you guys focus a training program for your LEAs. Okay.
How many people does it take to plug in the computer?
And one more mic.
Oh, two. Okay. Can you hear me? Is this okay? Yes? Louder, louder. Use my outside voice, right? Okay. Use my bus driver voice. Okay. Hold on, I'm juggling things here. I'm glad that works so we can see what we're looking at. Okay. Real quick. I'm going to show you some all-up data. So this is all of us combined. This is all kinds of claims that relates to school buses. And this is for the last 5 years. Where's my... I'm going to use his clicker because mine just stopped working. Yeah, there we go. Had some big numbers there. And these are the same numbers that Ron just showed you in terms of accidents. And to his point, these are claims made. So, you know, when you say you rear-end somebody, there's a claim for your bus, there's a claim for the other car, and maybe there's a claim for the injured party, or 2 claims from the injured party. Not all of them obviously are that big, but that includes that thing. These are only school bus, that's correct. And I mentioned to, well, let me back up. I've met many of you, I know many of you I've never talked to before. Some of you have seen me before. So let me just explain. I'm Mark Peterson. I'm the loss control manager for the state. I work in the Division of Risk Management. And one day I hope to put the claims people out of a job. It won't happen, but that's my goal, right? So they have a lot of job security right now. This is the one time we don't care about job security, okay? So, so those are some all-up numbers. But let me kind of get down to the nitty-gritty here. So this is frequency, how often there's a claim of, and we code claims for cause. And I had mentioned to the folks who attended the transportation directors meetings earlier this summer, listen, my data is not as good as I'd like it, and I've worked on that data, so I've cleaned it up. I've changed some of the coding on a whole lot of claims to make it more accurate. We've also created a report in our system to allow us to search bus claims more accurately. So you may notice, if you're paying attention, from prior meetings till now, even the UAPT conference in March, these numbers are bigger or different than they were then. The numbers haven't changed, it's just we have better data now, okay? But I wanted to point this out. So the reason we get in accidents, a lot of it is inattentive driving, almost 500 accidents. Does that surprise anybody? It does? And I'm going to break this down a little more here in just a second. Failure to obey traffic laws. We were just talking about earlier an incident where somebody was filming and a school bus driver just blew through a stop sign, which is interesting. Negligence. Oh, here we go. Sorry. This is my computer, not yours. You know that, right? Okay. So, oh, you know, we could just go view. There we go. Thank you. I've mentioned negligence in the past. Negligence is kind of what we code things when it's not clear if it was inattentive driving or something else. But I broke down the data a little bit. Would you go to the size tab down there? Yeah, thank you. And scroll down to the frequency graph real quick. A little more. Yeah, that one. So what I did here is I searched for claims that had to do with right turns, side swiping, tail swing, cutting a corner, you know, all the claims that deal with, they happen because of the size of our vehicles, right? Of the buses. And A lot of these, can you scroll just a tad so we can see the numbers on the side? No, you're okay. Thank you for doing this for me. So you may recall inattentive driving, 500, it was almost 500 claims over the last 5 years, mind you, was inattentive driving. And of that, he keeps going past the screen here, 150, 160 of those were the size of the bus. And out of the negligence was like 187 or something, whatever it was, 180. Almost all of them, 140 something of the negligence had to do with size. Unfortunately, my coding doesn't have a size option. But I was curious because when we talk, anecdotally, we always talk about right turns and the size of buses and tail swings, right? And so this just confirmed our perception that size of the bus continues to be, let me rephrase that. The size of the bus isn't the issue. The issue is we haven't fully accounted for our size. That's our opportunity. Does that make sense? I've got some people shaking their heads yes in agreement. Okay. And you can see, I mean, negligent use, obstructing traffic, things like that, few and far between. By far, either we're not paying attention or we're not judging our size well enough, or a combination. Okay? Yes?
So like the inattentive driving and the negligent, are all of these accidents that are charged, that the bus driver is charged, or could that inattentive driver driving be a collision that the other party was charged?
So what I did here is on the frequency, this includes all claims that are reported to us, which means, yes, it could include some that somebody else is at fault for. However, would you scroll up to the blue graph right above? These are the dollars paid out, meaning what you were at fault for. And you can see inattentive driving and negligence are still our top issues. But also keep in mind this negligence, one of the big drivers of that number is, I mentioned it at the UAPT conference. We had a claim where it was a left turn, and so that fell under, actually I think that one fell under, well, it should have fallen under inattentive driving. So now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking I'll have to go back and find that one because maybe it was miscoded. But my point is that one, we turned left and we in front of someone right, and there was a significant injury, 2 significant injuries, and so high that one claim can affect these numbers significantly, right? So, okay, let's zoom out.
No.
It's okay. We can just close that. All right. Let's see here. All right. So Joe Hayes was kind enough to let me use his district as an example. I'm glad he did, because it's a good district to use because obviously Alpine's the largest school district. They have the most buses, the most opportunity, for lack of a better word, the most risk, right? Just because of the size. And so we can see a lot of different things. Sorry, Joe. But I want to, this spreadsheet here is something I can do for any of you. I've done it for 1 or 2 of you. I think Iron County asked for it. But I can, if I have already done it for you, I can rerun it with the better numbers, by the way. And right now, I will just do it based on kind of requests, but I want to be able to do this for everybody regardless, because it's a great tool for you to use to really help manage where you want to, where do you put your money? Where do you spend your time and training to help you see what your trends are and what you've experienced? Okay. So this is what the failure to obey traffic laws, that top one. See that big number? That's that big claim that I was talking about, that left turn. Failure to yield was a citation. That's why I got coded that way. But I can guarantee you there was some inattentive driving involved, right? And by the way, I don't say that to disparage that driver. We all can be guilty of this stuff. It's just a matter of whether or not, that pyramid we talked about, if we're one of the 300,000 or one of, the one, at the top, right? So our decisions are key. Okay, so again, this is over 5 years. Let's go down. You can leave the magnifier on, but we go down to the tabs. Let's go out that first one. Yeah. Well, maybe we need to zoom out. Here we go. So I created just some graphs so you could see it real quick. This is just the auto liability severity. So on your own spreadsheet, you can do this real quick. I mean, this took me about 2 minutes, okay? Because I got the pivot table, I figured out, I just sorted what I wanted, I copied it on another sheet, I created a graph, bada boom, bada bing, right? But it's a good it helps, Joe's gonna see this and he goes, okay, in general, we do pretty good for the size of our district, but we've had 2 years that are really crazy. Why is that, right? And then he can start looking into that. There are just a few claims, but it can help manage what's the behavior, what are our trends. Then we scroll on to the next one. Thank you. And then same principle here with the frequency. How many claims do we have per year? And again, this is auto liability, so what we're at fault for, damages to other people's vehicles or injuries. And you can see, hey, look, there's a correlation between 2019 frequency and severity. So we had more claims in 2019, and of course they cost more. So there's a connection there. A little bit of a connection in 2017 as well, but as you can see, the difference in the amount of claims versus the difference in the costs of claims is dramatic. So the amount of claims is not the main driver of what's happening with Alpine, okay? So now, as a transportation director and a trainer, you can go, okay, now we're on to something. Now let's dig a little deeper. Here, I'll just do this real quick. And then you can do the same thing here for auto. This is damage to your own vehicles. And you can see this is the severity with the dollar amount, okay? And again, you can correlate that 2019 number really high. It was really high for liability. That makes sense. But then let's get into our the causes, okay? So on this report, you could filter 2 ways. You could filter cause general and cause. That's the technical terms. Essentially, we start with cause general, which means generally what happened, okay? So in general, you can see we struck a lot of other vehicles, right? Which makes sense. If you're out on the road, there are other cars moving, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to hit other vehicles as opposed to striking objects, or in this case, look, struck by other vehicle. Paid out when another vehicle hits us, and that just means another vehicle hit us and we had some negligence of our own. but obviously it makes sense that that's why it's so small. Okay. Struck animal, it's 0 or it's so small it won't show up on the graph, right? Backed into, so not a lot of money spent in backing claims, and so on. So again, you can say, okay, it's when we're out there among other vehicles. That's now we can spend some time on that. Let's scroll down a little bit. Thank you. And then in terms of, again, now we can compare how many of those claims we have. Okay, now we're really getting somewhere. Okay, we're hitting other vehicles. We've got 180 claims, corresponds to the money we're spending. Okay, we've got some backing issues, but not quite 20 in 5 years. Not bad, right? Okay, and so forth. Look, struck by other vehicle. Almost 50 claims, but the money doesn't correspond. That makes sense because we're not paying out on all those, right? Because it's somebody else's fault. But it helps you see why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And then let's go cause. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Now we can zoom in a little more, right? Now you go, okay, so what's the root of the issue? So you go, well, we had, in terms of money, there's that failure to obey traffic laws, that one accident, which had a couple claims attached to it, right? For the bus, the car, the 2 injuries inside it. So we know that left turn caused some money. We know inattentive driving is one of them. And as you can see, not a lot of payout on anything else. Okay? And when you have a big claim, you go, okay, we know the big claim. We've addressed the big claim. We're going to be talking about the big claim because it's the big claim, right? So let's set the big claim aside for a second. What's that leave? Inattentive driving. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? And so now this is where you go, okay, well, why the inattentive driving? Well, let's look at the frequency and see if the number of claims are matching up like before as we drill down. Okay? Okay, inattentive driving. See that? Again, indicates it's just 1 or 2 claims that drove that high dollar amount. But on the inattentive driving, that's where we're having our issues. Okay? And now on this one, will you go to size? I did the same thing that I did for all up. I searched in the description the turns, the side swipes, the right turns, excuse me, the tail swings, and it tells me we're misjudging our sizes. We have some that maybe we're not paying attention all that much, but here. Now, again, this is dollars, so if we scroll down, dig in just a little more, and just confirms everything we're talking about. Paying attention and the size, okay? Now you've got a real good understanding. You know, Joe can go, all right, this is our biggest issue. And Joe, I'll bet you, Joe already had an idea that would this have been your hunch, Joe? Yes. Joe knows this because he's a good transportation director. He's paying attention, right? But this will help solidify that. This will help Joe go, hey, I need some money, potentially, right? Because you can show the data to help drive what you want to accomplish, okay? Okay, now I'm going to show you something. That's not the one I wanted. Okay. Okay. So now you go, okay, we've got struck other vehicle was a big one. And then I want to look at inattentive driving, for example, and I want to see what does that look like. So I'm going to double click, I'm going to drill in, and it pulls up all these claims, just the raw data. Down here on the end, I can look at what the loss description was that was reported to state risk. Now, you can see this is where this is going to help you and it's going to help me. When you report your claim, when you tell us, well, the bus clipped the claimant car, right there where our the cross is. Bus clipped claimant car. That's good information for me. Clipped is a good descriptive word, right? We all know what clipped means. It helps us think size, of the bus and all that, right? Bus hit claimant parked car. And, right? It doesn't give a lot of description. And so when you're on this and you're trying to dig deeper, you can say, okay, why is that? And see, Joe could potentially go up here, just go up to the top, and under accident description, he can search claimant hit car or parked car. How many of these do we have over the last 5 years, right? Why is this, And you can start, here, why don't you do unselect all and do bus clip claimant car. Let's do that one. So you hit OK, and you can see we've got whatever that is, 12, however many claims that is, okay? And this will let you see, will you scroll up just a tad? I'm sorry. No, you're okay. I said up, I meant out. And then scroll over.
Do you want to separate?
No, just leave it right where it is, and I'm just going to come over this way. So then you come over here and you go, okay, and now you can look at the names of the claims, and all of these are different names. We'll protect the innocent and move it over, but so what I can glean from that is they're different names, they're different claim numbers, so these are different accidents. Okay? Not if we had 5 of the same claim name with just a variation on the claim number, like it'll be 1001, 1002, 1003, then that's the same accident. And you can look at the loss date and confirm that, right? Here in the data. But this will help Joe go, you know what? Or Rex. I don't mean to leave Rex out. But you look at this and you can go, okay, this is how many times we've done this, right? And if there was a bunch of the same, that means multiple claims on the same occurrence, right? And you can, so it doesn't, maybe it's not as bad as it looks at first glance, okay? But when you say to your bus driver, look, we have clipped cars this many times in the last 5 years, that's some real tangible stuff. That's some real data, right? And now you've got something to really talk about, okay? And so this tool, I hope this tool can be helpful to all of you, so you can drill down and tweak and apply the 2020 training to what you need. And of course, Ron and everybody else will be talking more about that later today, right? I don't want to make an assumption. So, was this helpful? Yes. Okay, good. So, like I said, a couple things, and then I got to run because I have some other meetings today. But right now, I'm the one who's pulling these reports and doing this, and this is one of the many, many things I have to do. So right this moment, I want to get you all of it. If you email me and say, get me this now, then I'll work on you first. But I am here in the next week or so, I'm going to make a call to HR because I'm pleased to announce that I have approval to hire a TL position, which is a like a time limit position, to hire a vehicle loss control specialist. And over a year or two, however long we can do that time limit duration for, I'll use that information to prove that we need that position, and hopefully I can keep that person forever. So we have someone dedicated to this very thing, auto accidents, bus accidents, and the like. So we can get that, essentially so we can have more, we can respond to your needs better and faster. So I'm really happy about that. That's all I got. Thank you, guys. What's that? Oh, my email. Here, I'll type it here.
Yeah, so we're really glad Mark's with risk management. He's been willing to come out. He's talked to our directors in a conference. He's being able to show us this data. I really like, this is tangible. This is something we can look back at. It's very tough when we try to go back through our records. I know when I was a director, our records were primarily paper. And to see this data in electronic form, this is great. So again, I just really like the cooperation we have and their willingness to help us. And ultimately, they're, they want to see us get better as well. But I'm so glad we have these different tools that are available to us to help us identify what our training needs are.
And Joe and Rex, I'll email this over to you later today.
How that mic?
Yeah. Cool. You're welcome. Thank you. Everybody get this down? My email address? Going once. I'll wait for a minute. We'll do that this way. Hey, Lonnie, you're leaving. You're not allowed to use this.
We have it memorized.
Okay. Everybody got it? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Mark. All right, for our next segment of our in-service, I actually wanted to learn about a few things that are happening right now within some of your districts. And so I've asked Wayne, I've asked Dot, and I've asked Allison to come up and just talk a little bit about what you're doing in your districts, what's exciting, and tell us a little bit about it. I know I'll have Wayne go first.
Oh, I don't have to have that on, do I?
For the camera.
Okay, well, I'm a kind of guy that likes shiny things. We were with grandchildren last week, and they have one who, if you got anything that's sparkly in a rock, he's picking it up and he's putting it in these pockets until they don't hold anymore. I'm kind of like that. You aren't missing anything. So, last year at NAPT, some meetings you go to and you just think, oh man. And I try to be broad in what I go to, in that I'm interested in the new technology that come not for buses only, but for trucks and for automobiles. And probably the most disappointing session I attended was a year before last at NAPT, when one of the manufacturers had this big unveil. And they brought in, they had a car from, they not only produce buses, but they produce large trucks and they produce cars. And boy, they were talking about all these technology safety features of the car and of the semi that they had there. And I thought, oh, great, finally. somebody's going to introduce all this technology, this crash avoidance, all these safety features on these other vehicles to a school bus. And what did they unveil? They unveiled an electric school bus. Not that I'm opposed to electric school buses, but I thought, when are we ever going to get all these safety features on school buses? Well, this last year at NAPT, Michelle from NTSB gave a presentation that changed my perspective on school transportation. They were talking about the need for this technology. She described accidents that they were investigating, not in terms of emotion, but in terms of scientific data that they had used in researching the cause, what happened, the outcome, where kids were sitting in the accident, number of fatalities. And she brought up two things that really affected, in my opinion, what we're doing in Cache and Logan. And one had to do with the fact that every school bus should have electronic stability control, and it should have collision mitigation systems on it. And this year, we started last year, this year, I told the vendors that if they wanted to sell us a school bus, it would have a surround camera system so the driver can see all the way around that bus when they're loading students, or when they make a right-hand turn, it'll show in the mirror the camera from the right-hand side. And it needed to have a collision mitigation in that it would warn the driver if they're tailgating or if something's not right with follow distance, and also leaving the road. And this year, I am pleased that we have, as of tomorrow, we're supposed to have a bus delivered, and that will give us buses from all three of the major bus manufacturers, that these buses all have collision mitigation systems in addition to the surround outside camera system for the driver to see all the way around the bus. I took one out the other day that has the active adaptive cruise control, got behind a dump truck going on the highway between Logan and Smithfield, and set the cruise behind that dump truck, and when the speed limit changed to 45 in Smithfield, the dump truck slowed down, and so did the bus. And it does a great job. So that is an important thing that I got out of NTSB's presentation. The other thing was, in those accidents that they described, the driver should not have been driving a school bus. And so there was a disconnect. There was a problem there that somehow the district was letting a driver drive that they shouldn't have let drive. And so that, the other thing that we're doing in Cache is we have hired two more. We call them coaches instead of trainers. We've hired two more, and we gave them pay raises, all of them, because they are important. And if you're an instructor here today, I just want to say thank you. And I also want to tell you that what you do is extremely important, not just with how you train the driver, but the things you see in, as they talked about earlier, the unseen things, those 300,000 things that go on that don't get reported. The more eyes we can have to help see those and to help fix those, the better. And not just with the bus driver's behavior, but we want our folks looking at the stop location, as they talked about, as Ron talked about in Arizona. If we move a stop, is it going to be safer? How the buses are interacting at the school, how the kids are behaving at the school. We want our coaches involved in a broad area of safety to make sure that our routes and our school buses are the safest they can be, and to support the drivers in helping do that. So that's just two things that we are doing. And I know there are a lot more, and there are a lot better ideas, but Ron just asked if I'd share those 2 ideas, so thank you.
By the way, thank you to Alpine for sponsoring this and Donis from Alpine.
This is
Thank you,
for the
Alpine.
For the camera. Stop.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Is it working? Is this working at all? Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, if anything happens, it'll happen in Alpine, I promise. Anyway, yeah, we have this year now 403 buses. So we have a lot of work to do, and I have 20 instructors, and most of them are right here. So hands off, yay.
Can you see if they'll turn up the mic, speak
What?
a little more?
Where? This one?
Just talk into there.
Which one? Can you hear better now?
See if you can turn the volume up.
Can you turn the volume up?
I'm upstairs.
Oh, I don't know if I see anybody up there. Did they turn it up? Oh, well, does it sound better? Okay, we got permission from Ron this year, this summer, because our district is so big that we can't just all of a sudden change programs overnight. So we started working on this new program that's going to happen in February, okay? And what we found, I took the classes, we covered all the classroom information, but I didn't have it any longer than an hour. And actually what happened in the classroom, they were all attentive, they weren't falling asleep, they weren't standing up because they'd been sitting too long. We still got 10 and a half hours of classroom, but what we did is we changed it to 30 and a half hours of behind the wheel, at least. Now there's more, because after we get through with the class, then they go with one of the instructors and work on whatever they need. So, so far, we had 22 that took our class, and we have 6 more to test, but only 2 have failed. But they didn't get with our instructors to learn the pre-trip. So, but the skills trip, they're nailing it. I mean, they're getting 0 to 4, that's it. And so you can have 12 to not pass. But anyway, it's really working to do more behind the wheel. We're finding this out. So that's one thing, and we're gonna keep improving. We go for proficiency, so I don't even test them until they have passed off all their skills and pre-trips and everything in proficiency. So it is working, this is a new program. So hopefully we will get it in place by February and, be ready to go. And it's not that hard. The program is, I've been here a long time. So we used to kind of train like this. We used to go along with what the driver needed, and they were able to pass on the ones that were good and ready to move on. And then those that need more help can get more help. So this will be a good program. So I hope you won't get worried and think, oh, this is going to be too hard, because it really isn't. It's going to be to our advantage to do this. And we had a driver that came from New Mexico, but she had 20 years of driving experience. So we were able to move her along quickly. And the other ones that needed more help, we still have a couple that they need to get that, and they won't sign them off until they're proficient. So it is working. And I hope that our Alpine district will have less accidents this year and do a little bit more defensive driving. And remember, I always talk to them about fault and no fault, and preventable and non-preventable. So there's 2 different things, and sometimes the drivers forget that. So there are 2 things. Even though it's not your fault, you still got in an accident. Could you prevent that accident? And that's what the goal is. So hopefully you'll get your instructors out there and work them, use them, because they're valuable people. Okay, thanks. Who's next? Just holding up. Yeah, just hold it. Top in the top.
Don't ever answer a call from Lonnie Harden, because then you'll have to speak. So she asked me to talk about some other things that we've been looking into, and I contacted our professional development team that does the teachers. I thought, we're not reinventing the wheel. If there's something out there that is appropriate for teachers, it's probably good for a bus driver as well. And so we did in-service this year and had 2 ladies from Southwest Behavioral Health come and talk about suicide prevention, which checks one of the boxes and was completely different than what we've ever done before. So that's one resource, is your professional development team in your district. The other thing I got from them were some programs that we haven't used yet. We had a little tutorial yesterday on a couple of them as well. One of them, you can actually create your own video. I know Ralph's doing PowerPoint presentations. You could take the PowerPoint and make your video, talking over that along with the PowerPoint in the background. And I'll get these to Ron so he can email them out. Would that be okay? Yeah. The other one's called Ed Puzzle. And those of you who come from education, you may know this one already, but you can actually take a YouTube video and say, I only want this last 2 minutes. Everything else doesn't apply. And crop it. You can do, a ton of stuff. You can take the video that you just made with your other software and put a test in it and, go 2 minutes, pause it, do a a kind of quiz in there. You can keep it from them skipping ahead kind of thing. You can't make them pay attention, but you can at least keep them from skipping. So anyway, those were a couple of really good options that I got from our professional development people.
Thank you.
It's in my finger.
So what I'm really excited about is seeing how you guys take this and move forward. We have so many opportunities, so many ways we can learn and grow. And just to let you know, we're building a best practice about continuing education right now, and it's early. We don't know what to put in there. But I like what I'm seeing. Just in this last 2 months, we've had a lot of different changes, and I think this is going to be a great best practice. It's going to help better the bus drivers in our state. So I want to take just a few minutes and talk about our responsibilities. I chose these birds. I don't know what they are. Some kind of bird. How do you relate these birds to us as instructors? What are some ideas?
Take turns being the lead.
We take the lead. What else?
Being the lead.
Take
turns.
We take turns being the lead. I think that's great.
They're all flying. Yep. They're flying.
Yeah, they're all flying. They're all flying a little differently. They're flying the same direction. Perfect. What else? We're soaring clear above. As I watch, seen a documentary about geese. If there's a injured goose, often you'll see 2 or 3 fall behind. They're drafting. They're the one in the lead is doing the majority of the work. The ones in the very back are almost gliding, right? And I can see a lot of that relationship with us as instructors. Another thing I thought of is, how do we know what's going on behind us? We're pretty aerodynamic. I'm sure if we turned our beaks to the left, we're going to turn left, right? We don't always know what's going on behind us. This is another, this is the Iceberg of Ignorance. Again, this is from American Bus Association. At the very top, 4% of the problems are known to executives. I'm somewhere over here. A lot of times the only problems I hear about are after the fact, and they're because of news articles, okay? But we have 4% known to executives. As we go further down this iceberg, we have 7% of the problems known to team managers, right? Excuse me, 9%. 74% problems known to team leaders. 100% are problems known to staff. This is where, oops. This is where those unreported problems are. This is those drivers that did an unsafe act. Do they report it? Probably not. So how do we identify what the problems are? What's our role? So we have to share what else? What are some tools that we can use?
We have to monitor it.
We have to monitor it. Okay.
Have a good relationship with our staff.
That's perfect. She said, have a great relationship with your staff. It's much easier to share something to a friend, especially if you have a great relationship. You're going to look at it differently. You're not going to discipline. If they come to you with a problem, you're going to help them, right? And that friendship helps overcome that. What else? Come on, from the back.
Hey.
Yeah.
Just a climate. Coming from the education's part and dealing with people who, a lot of them are part-time. They may not feel as invested in it. And so trying to get that culture where that 100% feels invested enough that they're willing to address some of these issues.
Okay. So he said, building a safety culture. You know, we hire a lot of part-time substitute drivers, and we need to make sure they feel included, and so that they're willing to share those incidences with us. Correct? Okay. So we've come up with a few different tools. We kind of mentioned monitoring. So we have our driver appraisal, and this is supposed to be done how often? Every year. We have a few districts doing it twice a year. Tell me about this form. How good is it? Yeah? Hey kids, I want you to know my supervisor's on the bus today. He's watching, right? Does that happen to you guys? That happened almost every time. Unless I hid in the back under the seats, right? Well, that didn't happen, but that happened most of the time. So the kids were good. So this form is great, but what are some ways we can do some of these same techniques outside of the bus? Use of cameras, that could work. What do you think? Right up here at the top, pre-trip. What tools do you guys use for pre-trip? Let's see, speak up just a little bit. Speak up just a little. Zonar. Zonar's a pre-trip tool.
Observing the drivers during a pre-trip.
Okay, we have observing the drivers during a pre-trip. That's perfect. I had is it Weber, Instructor Lynn, he told me a story that in Weber it's a little bit different demographics. They allow other bus drivers to park at their homes. Well, he pulled up to a driver's home, climbed in the bus, sat in the first seat, and waited for the driver to come out to do their pre-trip. It was about a mile down the road when he said, "Aren't you going to do your pre-trip?" and scared the driver. And I laughed. The driver left the driveway without doing the pre-trip, without noticing there was a person on board. To me, that's scary. So there's some great tools. So observing, what are some more ways? Substitute for them. How many times do you do a pre-trip on their bus and find that it should be out of service or there's defects? It happens all the time. Great way. What else does substituting do?
You're driving.
You're the driver. You're now able to observe how the kids behave on the bus. You're able to see which students are watching you to show them how to cross the street safely. As a director, when I would substitute for a driver, it was often I would substitute that afternoon, and I'd have that driver in my office in the morning to discuss what I found on their bus route. Your kids aren't trained. Your kids aren't behaving. They're not sitting down. Right? All those things are observed, and you can actually fill out one of these forms without the driver present, right? So, like there's a lot of these, and as I looked at this form and tried to figure out how I could utilize this information, it could be just one morning. You guys have the opportunity to pull up to the mirror box. Let's check your mirrors. Let's see if you've done your pre-trip, because mirrors is part of your pre-trip. If mirrors weren't adjusted, pre-trip's not done, right? At the conference I went to, one of the things that really stood out to me is a mirror that is not adjusted correctly is actually an obstruction to vision. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are setting up our bus so that we have, as our mirrors become a tool, they're not obstructing what we see. We have speed management. As a director, I know you guys are busy. I know as instructors you're busy. I just stopped at a monitored location and I watched all my buses go by. You know, was this bus following too close to the bus in front, right? There's a lot of things you can do besides going for a ride. And if you're going for a ride, you're not getting accurate information. Let's talk about students. What are some other things we can do to identify student management? What was that?
Like seating chart.
Yeah, do your drivers use a seating chart? That definitely helps. Yeah.
Just random models on cameras and that's that's a very large task inside your district, but that actually helps because even though the cameras are on, drivers usually just go back to their normal room. You'll see it, right away as soon as you start pulling off the footage, whether or not the driver is driving on the road and not managing students, or whether it has to record and hopefully get them shed or those lines.
Yeah, so he mentions the use of cameras again. Another tool we have. If I, as a director, if I had a parent call up and make a complaint, I try to look at the camera. If that day wasn't available or it happened too long ago, I would talk to the parent and say, you know what I'll do though? I will pull the camera. It records about 2 weeks of footage, and I'll just pick 3 random days and just watch a minute each of those days and see if I see a problem, and then I can address that issue. So cameras are a great tool. I had another. I actually had my superintendent help me when I first started. We had a complaint, and I actually had the superintendent just call some parents on the bus route to find out what their kids thought of their bus driver. That was great. I had so many good compliments about my bus driver. And it was really nice. Being at a small district, I did get the help of my superintendent. But my superintendent just said, I want to go ride that bus because he sings to the kids. He does this, he does that. And that was really good for me and being able to show the value of my drivers. We have our noise levels we can monitor. I talked a little bit about staged monitoring. Do you guys watch your emergency evacuations? Do you watch the loading zones at the schools? Do you see how kids come off the bus? I mean, there's a lot of different tools we can use that we can monitor a big group of people at the same time. And I think that's really important, especially when we're trying to figure out what our problems are, is we need to get a little more creative. Because this form is great, but I never liked it when they would announce who I was, and the kids were always better. The driver was always better when you go on a ride along. So we've covered all these different topics. So one thing I did as a supervisor, and it took a couple years to kind of find something I liked, and I know it's difficult as a supervisor to do our annual reviews. But one of the things I did is, besides doing the ride-along sheet that talked about the driving, I looked at the employee, and so I had, questions like, does the employee follow directions? And that was something I could help build up my employees. And this was pretty simple. This is something I can share if you guys want. Also on this form, it had a section for employee plan of action. This is kind of where most of the time I used it to allow the employee to make goals about increasing safety. And so I talked to the drivers and I would ask them, what's a goal that you could set to increase safety, or something to help you as a driver? And I was really surprised because some of my best bus drivers set some really good goals. They had one of those close calls, and they wanted to not be in that position again. And for me, I had a spot for supervisor comments. This is where I could help them with a plan of support. That is a great goal. How can I help you achieve that goal? And that put a little pressure on me as a supervisor. But I gained a relationship because I helped that person overcome a challenge that they were facing. It also had a section for addressing potential discipline. If you guys do not document, it does not happen, okay? Documentation is key. You need to make sure that you're documenting everything. I've had a story, and I'm not going to share it now, but where the lack of documentation created almost a nightmare for me. And I learned from it. And so documenting these goals, you can review it next year. Did you improve, the safety of your bus stop you were concerned about? Did you do this? And you can follow up. And so this is a great tool. I also want to say that depending on the size of your district, the roles of director and the roles of instructor can be intertwined. They can be different. So I know with some of our larger districts, the director is going to be involved, but he's going to delegate a lot of the work to the instructors. That can even happen in a small district, but you need to have that relationship with your director. They need to be informed of what's going on. I didn't expect my instructors or my secretary to do any type of discipline. That was all me. I just got the facts and I did that part. And that was kind of how it was set up in the district I managed. So this was a great tool for me. Let's see. Let's talk about accident reviews. What are a few things you guys do that are specific to your accident reviews? Are you guys included in the accident review? Only a few hands. You know, our accident review is being done. So this is something that I think is important. You know, if you have an accident that, I know a lot of our bigger districts have an accident review team that they try to figure out what needed to be done. It's also a chance to give that driver that additional instructional opportunity. You know, we noticed that you backed into you bumped a fence and it did no damage to the fence or the bus, but can we walk you through your reference points for backing? Can we do different things? And that's really what the accident review should do. It should focus on the needs of that driver. So what are some other things that you guys do? Lane? Lane told me that after an accident, he goes and looks at the mirrors. Make sure they're adjusted properly. So there's a lot of different things we can look at. If we're documenting, we can keep track of the frequency of accidents. I want to go back to being a mechanic.
Oh, one of the real important things too, it wasn't just are they adjusted. Can the driver see what they're supposed to see? A lot of times we find out they don't really understand what they're supposed to see in that mirror.
Okay, that's perfect. So Lane said, often, even if the mirrors are adjusted correctly, does the driver know what they're supposed to see in the mirrors? Correct? Okay. Being a mechanic, we're always we try to be focused on the preventative maintenance. The idea that we can prevent a breakdown, prevent a problem, saves so much time. If we let the problem fail and there's a breakdown, then we run 2 mechanics out with the bus and we try to shuttle the bus back, and then the bus is in the shop for a week because we didn't have parts on hand. It gets messy, and the costs of that are about 3 or 4 times the cost of preventative maintenance. If we catch, you know, a hose that's wearing on a lube, we can replace that hose, we can fasten it to where it won't rub, and we have prevented that hose from bursting on a field trip where it's hot down to St. George, right? And so I want to look at our responsibilities as instructors, and I want to ask you, how can we prevent problems from happening? First thing is we need to learn what's going on. And so I want to encourage you guys to build relationships with your drivers, to build relationships with your directors and instructors, and work together to be able to share those. I want you to ask your drivers what training they would like. You may not know the reason behind it, and they may have had one of those close calls or a near accident that scares them, and you can provide that training. So like a bird, we're flying high, we're overseeing things. We're leaving the group to help the few that are behind. And so I just encourage you guys to think about how you can continue to help people. Go ahead, Dot.
And one thing, we do have an accident review committee that we have different people on it. And then Joe will come and tell me what accidents we have. And then with my instructors, we do take the people out and teach them. But then in the spring, when we do our training, we will train to those accidents that we keep having. And I will mention them when we have our classes, and we have 2 different types. We have 4 hours in August, and then we have 4 hours in June. But I will bring up the accidents. I don't put names on them, but we'll bring those up and show them what accidents we're having.
Okay.
And so it does, I think that will help. And so we just started doing that a little bit more.
Okay. So Dot just mentioned they do have an accident review team, and they meet, and they also meet with the director at different times. They find out what accidents are happening, and they're on a program to do I believe it's a skills course every year to try to reduce those types of accidents. Okay. Yeah.
You can also utilize the camera system. If you have a driver who's had a collision have them watch the video and explain what they were thinking when they were going through it. Many times they weren't even aware of what they did wrong until they see it for themselves.
Be ready.
Yeah, you go through form.
Okay.
And thanks.
Cool. Good. Well, good morning. Is everybody awake? Whoops. Ron, where'd we go? Still have that. Yeah. Here we go. Try it again. We're going to try to do this as a dual. I don't know how that'll work with what we got. Whoops, right one. You got that one? Okay, here we go. Everybody excited about all the changes? Right? Exciting time, right? In transportation in Utah. You know what? How many of you remember, and I want an actual show of hands, how many of you here remember when we changed from a chauffeur's license to the CDL program? Raise your hand if you do. Was there look around the room, there are some hands up in here, right? Was there a little bit of anxiety when that happened?
I had a gentleman quit. He quit because he was afraid of taking that test.
Did you hear that? Chris says, I had a driver that quit because he was afraid. We knew of drivers in Uinta that quit. We had a couple of older guys. One was ready for retirement. One wasn't quite there. And they said, hey, we're not going to suffer through this. We're out of here. I remember that with a couple of hours. Guys, change is hard, isn't it? One of the number one questions that we're still hearing, what do I do now? And it is a little scary, but it's interesting. It's really quite simple. We've made an example of me today, okay? So we hope that will help to answer a few questions. Wherever you're at, or wherever your driver was at, as of June 30th of this year, they finish the old program. Now, these are your existing drivers, and they begin to move to the new recertification. So what you need to look at, here's what's interesting. If you end up in a situation where a driver, let's say, is involved in an accident shortly, do they need to be current when that finished out? Or can we say, well, it finished, so let's just move on from here? What do you think? You need to be current. Okay, so you may have people who still need to work on that old form a little bit to bring it up to speed before you close that file. Does that make sense to you? Okay, if you've got drivers who wait and say, well, I'll do it all in the last year, is that adequate? No, they should be doing it as they go along, right? So you may have a driver that hasn't had a defensive driving course. Say they're one of those types of drivers. They could actually stretch that out to a 10-year stint, right? They do it early in one cycle and wait till the end of the next cycle. You've got a 10-year pattern there. Would that fly in a court of law? No. Okay, Miss Peggy would tell you that won't fly. That bird is going down, right? Okay, please realize that. So look at my research here. Birthday, I love that, unknown. Okay, if you look at that and you follow through, there are my two physicals. They show when I had those, right? That's my actual form. We just changed a couple of the things. Follow down through it, and as you follow that, if you look over here, I'll actually tell you what my birthday is. It's April 2nd of 1960. I have a cycle that I'm going to finish out. My actual CDX expiration date is 2022. So I'm about halfway through on that chart there, right? Can you see what I'm saying there? So I've made it about halfway through that recert form based on my birthday and my expiration date on my current license. Okay, so I should be about halfway done. If you look at that, am I halfway done? If you look at that, am I halfway done?
Your state CDR now.
Okay, the only thing I'm not current on
is first aid CPR, correct? Okay, we're finding out some interesting things as we're making this conversion. How often were we told by the state that we had to do our first aid CPR? Once every 5 years, right? What did you find out about that, Chris? It is wrong. It's every 2 years. The state told us, oh, you know, you can stretch that out to 5 years. We found out, you really can't. So there are a few of us, a lot of us. I only know of one district that was actually doing it every 2 years. If there are others, good for you. But a lot of us are going to have to catch first aid up really quick now, right? So if you were one of them that was doing it every 5, catch that up. That's one of the things you can start and begin to work on.
And we are looking at, it does say or equivalent training, which the training we reference is every 2 years. And so we're going to actually be making some decisions later. If we get the same type of training on like a 3-year program, that would be similar. But
The law says your local LEA. We spoke about this in Wasatch, and we have a program, and it will be different every 2 years. It will be a 6-hour program, and then it will be a 2-hour program. And then it will be a 6-hour. So it's again back to your local LEA, unless the state wants to make that change.
okay, so this is a local rule. So your program would have to meet the requirements still, but it could have a different frequency or a different training topic to be included. So there is that, and that if you guys haven't seen the LEA resources book, we posted it on our website as a resource. It has broken down the requirements in a simple handbook for you guys.
Question about this right here. So I understand the DOT physical, depending on the driver, it's it's once every year or every other year. But the physical assessment, can you just clarify, is that for drivers every year, or could they do it every other year?
Okay, if you look at mine right there, what does it show?
It says every year.
Every year. I've got 17 and 18. So the state's recommendation, the guideline there is what? Bye. So it's every other year. Can you as a district, though, say we're going to do it every year? Yes. Is that actually a good idea? Yes. You know what? The time you spend there will cover your behind in a way you can't imagine. Because if I can barely pass that test on the 710-217 test, or let's see, whoops, wrong line. On the 818-2017 test, I barely made it. Does that give me then the right to go 2 full years? Okay, you have the responsibility if you see a driver that you suspect can't do that test. You have a responsibility. And are we going to be held more responsible than ever if we're allowing people to drive who shouldn't? We are. We're going to be held more responsible than ever. Okay? So it's a good idea. I love that you asked that because it's a good idea. But here's the crazy part. If you do it for one, how many do you have to do it for? Everybody.
Well, what makes it confusing, I think the state says for attendance, they have to do it every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand.
I always have felt that one was kind of nutty.
Yeah. So
why would you do it for an attendant but not for a driver? That doesn't make sense, does it? So that's one of those things that we can say, hey, we're going to actually make that a more stringent requirement and do it every year. That's one that just simply to me makes sense. Okay, it's going to take a little more time, but it's a good thing.
So also with the NTSB, our governor got a request for us to review the NTSB statement that actually suggests that we have the physical assessment every year. And so we're actually in process coordinating with UDOT, with their recommendations, and with some state entities to review that. So that's also something new that will be coming out.
There you go. So you may just be ahead of it, right? Okay. Let's see. What else, Ron, is there? State in service will be gone now, right? but you'll have a district in service, okay? Those kinds of things are going to work. But guys, if we look at that form and really look at it, okay, here's the interesting thing. Those classroom units, are those the same units that you were taught clear back in original cert? Okay, go back and think in your mind back to an original cert form. Those are the same classes that were taught in original cert. So this is the mindset we hope everyone goes away from today with. How effective is it to bring Ron in for, scroll back down a little bit, go up, Ron, right there, if we can hold them all. Okay, look at that vehicle components unit number 2. That Ron Litchfield, who knows more about a bus, or Kip, we bring them in and we say, hey guys, you got to sit in here for 60 minutes with me and I'm going to teach you about vehicle components because I'm the expert. How effective was that hour? It was a waste of their time and yours. Okay, that's what we're trying to change. So now we have a different look so that that hour is spent effectively. That's what this is about. Can you see that? Now, if we have a person that's weak in that area, that may be an area we want to work on them with a pre-trip, right? So now do we have the option to do that? Yes. So let's look at the future. So Lane is more than there at about 2.5 years worth of work completed on that form. Now let's look into the future. Here we go, Ron. This is the new form that Ron has put together. It's ready. Okay, here it is. Now look at the difference in the format of this particular form. And we're going to load this and show you just an example of what can happen as we go. Are you ready? Okay, same guy, right? Okay, we're just switching to a new format. Oh, look at that. Hey, I told him, I said, what we really needed, there's one of the responsible parties. I don't know if any of you saw the UAPT website, but they had a nice monkey up with me for quite a while there. Okay. Everything stays pretty much the same information right there. Okay, let's keep going. Except, here's your change. What are the kinds of things that I can get credit for? Now, realize if I'm about 2.5 years through and we need 10 credits for each year, how many credits am I going to need on this sheet now? 25. It's really simple. So if you've got a driver that if you need 10 credits for each year and they're in their 4th year, how many will they need on this sheet? 10, yeah. You need whatever you need to complete that 5-year rollover. Does that make sense? Why are we staying with the 5-year rollover? Just keep it with your license. And poor Ron, can you imagine if we all rolled right now? That would be an interesting week at the state office, okay? We're not going to do that. We're going to roll, then stay with your rollover, okay?
So last month you said to put on like year this and 10 credits. You don't want us to do that anymore? You just want us to start with the current year? Start as of what day? Everybody remember? July 1st of this year. We'll start now and start to building for the credits. But like last year, 10 credits like you.
That will stay on that old form that we just showed. That's your backup for whatever you need. So if you had 1 year, you're going to need 40 credits on here. 4 years, you'll need 10. Makes sense to everybody. It's really not that difficult once you see it, I hope. Okay, now what kind of things can we put on there? Could we put that we've...
Questions are all being asked. Can you repeat the questions?
We don't hear the question. They can't hear the question.
We can't hear what's being asked. We can hear the answer. We just can't hear the question that's being asked.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Did I see another hand over here?
No, let's go back to the question.
Repeat her question in the microphone.
Okay, here, I'll let her ask you.
I just asked, last month he showed us to put, like last year with 10 credits next to it, and now it looks like we're not doing that anymore. So I wanted to clarify that.
So can you see what we're saying there now? Okay, don't bring last year onto this form. Start as of July 1 on this form of this year and begin to build it. Now, can you receive credit for being to these last 2 meetings? Continuing education credit. Absolutely, these 2 meetings will qualify. Now, who will determine how many credits you get for that?
It's this one. The other one was in June.
Oh, that's right. Whoops, I'm sorry. That's right. Yep, technically you're right. Got to go back. Okay. The last one won't count. This one will count. Okay. Who determines how much credit you get for it?
Each school district.
Your district. Your district determines that, okay? Your district will make that determination of how much credit they want to get for that. Now, whoops, question?
If I send in someone next week.
Stand up, blurt it out, and then maybe they'll all hear.
Send someone in next week, they're certified next week, their birthday is next week. Send in both forms. Is that what Ron wants?
You get that one.
Yeah, send in both forms. That way we can document that the training's been completed.
Okay.
There's the answer, okay? Pretty simple. If you had somebody that finished last week, you might just send the one. I don't know. That's interesting because you will have people that are going to roll over shortly, right?
Right. But what if it's in 2 years? Are you going to want that last form?
Do you want the other form sent? Yes, there's a good question. Okay, repeat the question, I guess.
So the question is, in 2 years, will I want both forms?
Yeah.
And one thing that we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get, we've been awarded money to put together a database. We want to get to the point where this is reported online, and I think the reporting process will be much simpler. Like this form has really, I don't need to see which classes were taken. It may be as simple as this driver received this many credits for continuing education, and we have the driver has that on file. And I would like to see it be simple. And so I see for right now, I would just send in both, especially with this transition, and we'll work and provide updates as we get closer.
Okay, now it's interesting. What kinds of question back there? Kathy.
I was wondering, now, are we going to be turning something similar to this into the state? Is that actually going to be going to you?
Yeah.
Not similar. This is the form. She asked, are we going to send in something similar to the state? This is the form that will go into the state.
Okay, so this way, so are we going to send this plus, like, okay, let's say something's got 3 years in on the hours. Are we going to be sending both in, or are we just starting fresh with the last 2 years?
That's your question you just had.
Yeah, so send in both forms. We're going to have a transition period as we get closer.
Okay. Has everyone got that one now? Because that one's one we've asked twice now, right? Okay, so if you send in, you can send both forms in to Ron. Send your old one and this one, then he has a record. Is it essential that you keep? Yes. That's where it's really key. Make sure you have that old one, especially someone like me at 2.5 years. If I got in an accident now, I've got proof that, hey, I didn't just start today. I've been being trained for the last 2 years.
So then the state's only gonna want to know how many credits they got, who's going to track what the different topics they're going to be required.
Okay, that's a good question, Eddie. Did all of you hear that? Who's going to track what topics? Your district. What are the topics going to be? What your district needs. I love what Dot said earlier today. If you heard anything today, hear what she said. They're getting results. They're doing what their people need.
Okay, so our last meeting, we had that, we were given those forms for the drivers that have different topics.
You can use any topic, any you need that will help your people.
So CPR, first aid, all that, the things that are required sometimes that are not no longer required.
Okay. No, they are.
No, they are. So let's continue with this, and I think this will help answer some of those questions that just appeared. So as we pull this back up on the screen, we have our loading and unloading safety. This is part of maybe Washington County's in-service. And one of the reasons that Lonnie might choose to do this is because nationally we're having some trends with safety with loading and unloading. And we dramatize loading and unloading.
This is scary.
At least you got there.
This was a fast clip, but in the background, you saw the kids waving and having fun. To me, this is scary. We've had other instances in the state where kids think something's fun and they try something dangerous. Are we going to see more of that in the future?
Okay, it's really interesting when she asked, are those same things going to be required? Yes, because first aid is a requirement every 2 years. That can count on this form. I just did that last week because I realized my card, I last took it in 15. So I was good under the 5-year rule, but with realizing it's actually 2 years, I needed it. So it's immediately been done. So can first aid be put on there now? Yes.
The next item I brought up was the emergency procedures, and I talked to Lonnie for just a minute. One of the big concerns she has is because of this NTSB accident, the directors are also responsible for some of the things that went on. And so she's going to specifically talk about what to do in an emergency, talk about being fit for duty. There's a lot of things that are immediate needs of her district.
Good.
I have a question. Again, if we're asking our bus drivers to keep this documentation correct?
Yes and no. Yes, that's what's required. It's required now of the driver to keep track. Do you have the option to go ahead as a district and keep track? Yes.
So absolutely. So my question is, would it help that bus driver to put on there the absolutely required things that they have to do?
I think as a district, that's a great idea. I don't know that you will import that onto that form, will you? Probably not. I think as a district, that's a great idea for a district to list it.
So let's take first aid CPR. Where would that fit on like I'm saying, we're asking some bus drivers and or district, where would that fit? Should we just put first aid, CPR?
I think that's a great question, and here's how I would handle that. I would customize that. I would sit down and say where I just took it. My next 2 years it wouldn't show it next year in mine then, would it? But it would show it on my next year. So I would customize that to each driver is what I would do. I think that's a great idea to put together a little list for them like that and show them what's required so that no one makes that mistake. Okay, back here, Lonnie, let her go and then you. How's that?
On the credits, you made the comment that each district is responsible for assigning a certain amount of credits per. Why would you have us do that when we could do, let's say, 5 points for unloading, loading, unloading? Why don't we just have the state say, loading, unloading is 2 points, this is 2 points, this is 1 point, this is a half a point. Why would canyons be allowed to have more points on the subject than somebody else? Can you please explain that a little better?
Lonnie, what we talked about as a group is that it's weighted differently in different districts. If you have a loading and unloading problem, are you going to cover that? I hope to heck you are. Okay, so that district may end up with 5 credits there, and they may put people through a 2-day situation.
Well, and not in the same year, but yeah. So our continuing ed instructions help guidance about the credits. 2 credits max per course.
That's right. I forgot.
And
that.
so,
1 credit per hour.
Yeah, 1 credit per hour is our suggestion for that.
So credit equals an hour?
give that document with the required training, and we put together, we're gonna make sure all of our drivers have that too.
So Wayne just told me that he's going to give every single driver the instructions so that they're aware of what's going on.
One of the hard things, back to the question of the list, I like that. Why is it a little different? Because each district has different requirements for what the district even requires, correct? I got down to Washington and holy moly, a whole lot of safe school that needs done down there, right, Lonnie? A whole lot of them. So it would be a little different what's required in each district. We good?
Or this process has been to go to efficiency instead of being time-based, and then just kind of through the window where we said, okay, an hour per second.
But use that as a guideline, Annie, not as a set. Use it as a guideline.
Yeah, so the question was, so we have a suggested 1 hour per credit. That's our guideline.
Suggested.
But yeah, we are proficiency. So we want to, if it's proficiency, it also may not be, if it's taught that quickly, it may not be the
First aid, it's a 6-hour course. If you do the long course, you can only get 2 credits. It's not a 6 credit.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? You might tell them that. I don't know if they've all heard that.
First aid is a 6-hour course, but it's awarded 2 credits.
I thought the course in the instruction was for a college course. If the college course was a 3-hour course, they were given 3 credits. I was under the understanding that if they were sitting for 6 hours, they got.
Should we go to lunch?
Yeah, we need
to come back and answer a few of these after.
So yeah, we have the instructions. Ultimately, we're starting with 10 credit hours, and as you can see, just in a couple classes, we've filled up those 10 credits.
So can you have more?
Yes.
Yes, do what they need.
Can we get 3 for first aid? Like that?
Can what?
Please give like 3 credits for first aid.
It's 2 per course. Maximum of 2.
Can you do
I don't think so. I think you're splitting.
Hold on, time out. Time.
You're splitting.
Remember, this is specific to each district.
There you are.
School training.
I couldn't figure out where she was.
15 minutes. Each one online, not with an instructor, so 0.5 credits is a lot of credits for that. There's a lot that our HR department requires. A lot of it isn't even to pertain with school bus drivers.
So that may not apply.
Some things requires more. So every driver likes to see the points. So when on it, because when you get finished with our year, we're going to have 50 credits, and we need 50 in a year.
In 5.
So, okay, so I mean in 5 years. So what you're going to need to do is individually sit down as a group. Individually as a group, that's kind of oxymoron. As a district, with your group.
Individually as a group.
Let me think about that. Yeah, and you're gonna have to say, what are we teaching over the next 5 years? And then you decide your points. There's no right or wrong.
There's really not.
Subjects up here are not right or wrong. What's right is what your district needs. And it's easy, it's simple. And we like to complicate things.
And even more than that, it's about what your district needs, but it's what each driver needs. So can a driver within your district, if Ron and I drive for the same district, could our sheet look completely different over a 5-year period now? Absolutely. That's the key.
So we're gonna continue. If you guys still have questions, we can answer those in a little bit.
Let's eat.
But not yet. Okay. So we're gonna finish this out.
I think we need to. I think we need to finish it. Whoops.
So I want to remind you guys of what the definition of continuing education is. an educational program designed to educate bus drivers and give him or her further skills and knowledge to be applied in his or her line of work. So I want you to think about, how does continuing education apply to you guys as bus driver instructors? We saw just on that last form example that Lane had 2 more credit hours. He had 8 credits, would need 10 for the year, which seems pretty easy. But I want you guys to think about what continuing education means to you guys. What would build you guys up above and beyond what you are right now? Do you need another course in vehicle components? Probably not. You've been teaching that for years. I want you guys to stretch. What does continuing education mean for directors?
Vacation.
Vacation? Above and beyond what it takes to be a director. Now, we don't have these programs in place yet, and we're still discussing that. But I want you guys to stretch. You know, Lonnie may say, Lane, you're not, as an instructor, you're not getting credit for any of the annual training, because I want your continuing education to be focused on building you up as an instructor. So what am I talking about? We've got professional driver programs available to us. I know of 3 or 4 different ones. We have national courses. You can go to some of our regional conferences and learn about those. Just on a side note, I was always one that would never ask my drivers to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. I am pushing myself. I'm going through a national director program through NAPT. And I'm excited about it because I'm going to be able to bring that knowledge back, share things with you, and be able to be a better leader here at the state level. I got a city newsletter. I could not believe how many self-improvement courses there were. There was communication, there was computer skills, there was PowerPoint, Excel. There are so many great opportunities out there that we have not taken advantage of. We've talked a little bit about coordinating our presentations to our teachers. If our teachers are receiving a behavior presentation, you know, our instructors should be there and be able to grasp some concepts and bring them back and train our bus drivers. So I want you guys to request classes that will help improve your abilities. I do have just a quick example I'll show. There's a lot of online opportunities for education. Lonnie found one that just seemed like a pretty easy format. Each of these different topics, you probably can't see them all from the back. There's just tons of different topics, and inside every topic, you can click and you can open up another subset of topics. This one I just opened with PowerPoint. There's a video for getting started, understanding OneDrive, creating and opening presentations, working with slides, text basics. Each one of these is about a 5-minute video. If Lane needed to learn something about PowerPoint or computers or communication, he has that ability to stretch himself, to be able to take those courses. I know budgets are tight. You know, these type of videos and training are free. It's just a matter of time. And I encourage you as directors to work toward increasing your instruction budgets. One of the things we've done at the state level is we've identified we spend about $1.2 million training bus drivers every year. One of the transitions we want to do is we want to reduce those costs, and I hope you guys roll those savings back into your instructors, back where we can make the biggest difference. So with that, we're going to go to lunch. Oh.